This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Well, here we are into a new year, and many of us thinking about taking care of ourselves a little bit better, maybe losing weight, got on the scale today, don't want to talk about it, and all of that. Almost like a new lease on life. That's the name of her practice. And what she does practice are things known as bodywork, massage, and more. That's part of your new lease on life. We are going to focus on body work again today. This is a part two from where we left off last time because there's so much to talk about when it comes to body work. And so great to have her back with us, Jackie Davis, on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How about you, Steve?
Fantastic. Sorry for getting on the scale, but you know what? I'm not surprised. I'm not at all. But I was at the gym, spent more time today. So let's jump into where we left off, body work, and maybe if we could just to recap on what that word means, just basically.
Okay. Well, basically, there are three parts, and one is there's some kind of a technique, and it's like a canon of work, and the client's body is touched, manipulated, moved around, or touched energetically. So there are different ways to do body work. It's a very broad category. It's holistic. It treats a whole person, body, mind, and soul. And now you see more that traditional medicine and complementary medicine. Complementary medicine would be things like acupuncture, massage, any kind of body work that's doesn't have an MD behind it. And there's also a piece that there's some kind of a goal, and it might be to improve performance, like an athlete might go, or a dancer might go and get body work so that their performance can improve.
So that's an interesting way to look at things in terms of performance. Can you give an example of, let's say, an athlete and they want to enhance their performance, and the rest of us, we're not athletes, but you look at it this way, you want to feel healthier, maybe walk up those stairs and not be out of breath, feel like you're a little bit more in shape. So if you looked at it that way, improving overall performance, what would we look at in terms of body work? Essentially, what would we do if we wanted to elevate things a little bit in terms of our health and performance?
Well, I suspect that most people are aware that they get restrictions of movement. So if anybody's ever had any kind of injury, some kind of bodily trauma or a surgery, or even just a bad year, it shows in your body. And you can look at someone, if you have some training, you can watch them walk and you can tell that something happened. And sometimes it's just that the body's amazing. It takes a huge trauma like a surgery and patches it up.
Yeah.
It gets a little too eager though, and it overdoes it sometimes. So like scar tissue can be rampant, like following something like a mastectomy, and it can really restrict. Had a client who had difficulty raising her arm because of mastectomy tissues, and so that it can be something that major, or it can be something small, like a habit that you adapt, because when your body gets traumatized, it's working at getting you functional. That's survival, and it works pretty quickly. And so you adapt a gait or a way of walking that is not really ideal, and you could trip on your feet the way you walk. But at the time, it worked pretty well because that was about the best you could do. But you keep doing that year after year, you can look at that, you can go in and look at that and get some help with that. When I got my knee surgery, the they pointed out that I had a really bad habit of flicking my foot, and had no idea I did that. So the PT assistant took a video of me and said, "This is how you walk." And I went, "Wow, I never noticed that." And so part
Mm.
of that therapy or a body work focus could be getting rid of some little habit like that, which maybe affects you. Maybe it really doesn't matter, but maybe it could really help you, especially if you're an athlete and you really want to do your best and you're coming back from an injury.
So, Jackie, are you saying that let's say we have an injury, maybe it's a chronic situation, that we start doing other things or our body kind of guides us in another way to make up for it? Maybe not the best thing because now we're kind of walking a little off, but we're getting by. We're not feeling the pain or wherever that may be. Um, but that needs to be corrected because it's probably going to do some harm down the road from overcompensating in a different area.
It potentially can. I'm not going to say it always will,
Sure.
but potentially. And so someone like an athlete who it's very competitive, and you watch these athletes, these football players dance around with all these people after them, and they're running and they're catching balls, and
Mm.
just to look at their footwork, I'm amazed at how well they work. And I was reading an article about toe turf, and it's just an injury that I'd never heard of before. I just happened to be sitting in the salon to get a haircut and picked up Sports Illustrated, and it was talking about toe turf. I went, I don't know what this is.
Mm.
And basically, some people have to leave their careers because their big toes get damaged because of the contact between the shoes and the AstroTurf.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Now, body work isn't going to help that because they tear tendons and all sorts of things happen. They have amputations. It's really severe. So my point is that athletes, especially the contact sports, are going to have a lot more reasons to address these kinds of things. Because if you're running and you drag your foot a little bit, you're going to trip.
Oof. Yeah.
So, and to the elderly, when you get older, um, there's a lot of good reasons to do body work because as we age, we get weaker. And I read somewhere in some science-based publication that if we don't exercise, we lose 10% of our strength every year as we get older. And
Mm.
so you look at people and, just stepping up on a curve following my surgery was monumental. Walking in the grass with the ground a little uneven, I had to have a cane and a walker initially because my balance was off from
Mm.
that. But as you get older, things like that get more and more difficult, going upstairs, etc. And so I would say for people who are getting elderly and they want to be independent, they want to stay in their homes, they don't want to go to an assisted living, they like where they live, they like their neighbors, they're comfortable. Uh, in some cases, they could probably use body work to help them strengthen and allow them to stay independent over time.
Let's go back to when we have surgeries. So you emerge from the surgery, there's some recovery depending on what it is. But do you feel that many of us aren't aware of the other things that are going on? For example, the fascia and what's built up underneath. I'm always transparent. I had surgery right here, February. I think that was 40 something stitches, minor skin cancer, but it was needed to be addressed. It was growing out of nowhere very fast. And a more elevated type of skin cancer. Never had it before. Been dealing with it for years. This one was a little different, but I can even feel I guess it's the fascia underneath it right there. And doctors, say, just massage it daily basis, just always, you'll take it down. But that's just one tiny example of what's left over from a surgery that can impact our body. Now take that into like a major surgery somewhere going on. There's things that build up over time that need to be addressed if you want to get, the best out of your movement, right?
Hmm. Well, your surgery, and you said it wasn't a big deal, but where you had that surgery, there are a lot of lymph nodes there, and the lymph flows through there, and that can back up, and your body has to figure out where to take that lymph. And so it can
Mm,
be a problem over
true.
time. And now we're seeing increasing cases of lymphedema following surgeries and even
Wow.
without surgeries. And so body work includes lymph work. So
Lymphatic drainage massage, right?
right.
And to your point, spot on. Just want to share. I've talked about it previously. When this was happening less than a year ago, they told me it looks like stage 3 cancer. And I'm like, what? It almost didn't seem right. My intuition said something's not right here. Um, Further testing, different doctor revealed it wasn't. It wasn't at all. It was all surface, need just be removed and all of that. But yeah, to your point, because lymph nodes are so prevalent in that area, they were suspecting that it got into a lymph node. But yeah, there's so much going on here that we don't even realize. And I want to, you mentioned this briefly, I think off air last time we talked about how the body rebuilds itself in many different areas every 10 years. I've never heard that. Tell us about that.
Oh yeah. The bones are a good example of that. Uh, it's an average, but pretty much about every 10 years, the bones are totally remodeled. Now there are exceptions. As you get older, you don't build your bone as easily, and as you're so there are exceptions to that. But yes, and so 10 years from now, if you're a healthy person and your bone building is going, you'll have an entirely new skeleton in 10 years. It's pretty incredible.
I can't even fathom that. Like, but just goes to show that the body is always working, it's always repairing. And I read something yesterday that proper sleep is doubly more important than nutrition and exercise because that's where your body's regenerating. It needs that downtime, I guess, to make new bones and all of that. I can't even believe that in our minds, the bones are, well, that's what we got. Yes, they'll grow as you grow. You become an adult, and then that's it. There it is. That's it. So fascinating to hear that they can potentially rebuild themselves in 10 years. Amazing.
Well, too, we think of bones. I used to, you see it in the movie, and you've got the skeleton in the desert, and we think of that, that hard, dry area. But bones are really dynamic structures. They have cartilage. They have the outside surfaces of the big bones are harder, but they're interwoven with all the fascia in the body,
Mm,
and inside them they're full of lymph and, well, maybe not lymph, but they've got arteries, and that's where a lot of the red blood cells are involved.
yeah.
And there are a lot of things that can happen in there too, like some diseases where the bone marrow starts to have issues and you need a bone marrow transplant. But they're the bones are amazing. The whole body is.
It really is when you start thinking about it. Um, Primary receptors, sensory receptors under the skin. Can we talk about that?
Sure. Um, the way the nervous system works is that there are many kinds of receptors, and a really common one that we deal with in bodywork is called a proprioceptor. We also deal with it in everyday life. I was talking about how the football player running with the ball and dodging all his uh, defensive opponents, how how they move their proprioceptors are very strong, because the proprioceptors help you figure out where you are in time and space as you're moving.
Hmm.
And I don't have anywhere near that kind of coordination or speed when I move, but just from seeing what the difference post surgery and before surgery, I really began to appreciate how the receptors work, because my nervous system got interrupted. All these lines in the tissues were cut, and all these things, and the body had to build back, and it did. It did. I'm in pretty good shape now, but definitely not as good as I was before the surgery, but working on it.
Mm. Mm.
And there are different receptors, a lot of them around joints, and a lot of them are embedded in the tissues up under the skin. And there are two kinds that I would say body workers work with a lot. There are others, but these are the two main ones, which is a Golgi tendon, Golgi, Golgi, I always say Golgi tendon organ. And it's located in the juncture where the tendons, which attach the muscles to the bones, are located. So where a muscle and a bone a muscle and a tendon come together, you're going to find the Golgi tendon organs. And these really, these monitor pressure, tension. So if you pick up a weight, it fires up your Golgi tendon organs. And if the weight is too heavy, those will shut down, and you can't, and you drop the weight because it's too heavy for the muscles. It's too fast, it's too heavy. And there's an automatic reflex. If you've ever touched a hot stove and you immediately recoil, it's a reflex like that. It's wired in. So if you pick up something way too heavy, you can't hang on to it. You drop it. If it's too heavy for your body and it's too fast, your body has that control mechanism to keep you from doing damage. There's another one that's more in the muscle bellies, which is be the middle of a muscle. So let's say a long muscle like your in your arm, that where people do the pump and the biceps. So in the middle of there are these muscle spindles, and they have fibers that go out embedded in the muscle. So when the muscle stretches, that's what these fibers are looking at. And if there's too much stress, that gets shut off and you can't stretch anymore. And that's a way that your body protects you from getting injured. Now, there are also issues because things of trauma and so forth. So, like we were talking about when muscles aren't functioning well, their range of motion is inhibited, and they don't move very well. Often the muscle opposite on a joint is the one that is sending bad messages to the nervous system. And so you've got to go in there and you've got to re-educate the body. So it's a very complex thing. And although it really does help protect us a lot, it can go haywire sometimes, these proprioceptors.
So those those particular receptors, how does orthobionomy support that?
Well, part of it is the gentleness. So we don't go in there and grab an arm and move it really fast. We're not supposed to at any rate. We go in there and we move it slowly and gently so that the nervous system doesn't get alarmed and tense up. And I know sometimes I've had people do body work on me and they're really rough, and I can't relax because it's uncomfortable and my body's protecting me. And so like deep tissue, in some sense it can feel good, but the last deep tissue I got where they were really getting in there, it was uncomfortable for me, and my body I couldn't relax, and it hurt actually. And so the sensors identify that, and it's not as effective when those proprioceptors get tagged, and the body's saying, oh, this is dangerous, and they start to shut down the ability of the muscles or the tendons to work properly.
Hmm. What if somebody has had, we have weekend warriors, if somebody will play tennis on the weekend and, gets an injury, but then it leads to something chronic where they still feel it, even years later, 2 years later, still feeling some kind of discomfort. Thought it healed. I don't know what that is. Maybe they tried physical therapy. Maybe it didn't work out. Can orthobionomy support that?
It can definitely support it. Um, I've I had a client come in once, and she had worked with an orthobionomist in Florida, and she's one of the weekend warriors, and she evidently does long races. And she said that, and I just asked her, well, how did you find out about orthobionomy and who worked with you? And she mentions another practitioner in Florida that I've heard of, but I've never met in person. And she said, yeah, I was in the physical therapy office, and they said, well, we can't do anything else with you. We're going to send you to this guy. And he was the orthobionomist in the practice. And so he was able to give her some relief that the PTs couldn't. And I'm not saying that PTs don't do good work, but there are some things that the body needs to feel safe before it can resolve. I've found in my life, and other people have found as well. And there are a lot of people that are very sensitive, and they don't like body work because it's too rough for them.
Mm.
And orthobionomy is a good fit for them. And I know that some people I've worked with, and they tell me that I'm too rough on them. And I that's something that I've been trying to work on, is not being so rough. And I think I'm getting there. But they're like, if you just touch them, it's uncomfortable for them. And I know some of the work I've had, they're so gentle. It's like I just feel a fingertip
Mm.
touching me. And then I feel my body respond, and it builds up and it releases. And I'm going, wow, it's hard for me to believe that works so well.
Isn't that amazing? And to
It
your
is.
point, a couple of years ago, I had lymphatic drainage massage,
Hmm.
and it's a very light touch. And it achieved the lymphatic drainage aspect of it, but also there was some touch. So it was like getting a massage. But that was my eye opener, how something very so light can make such a difference. We're so used to, no, I'm paying X amount of dollars. Oh, go in there and give me the deep tissue. Yeah, start digging around and everything. No, it doesn't have to be that way. There's so many other modalities out there. Now, orthobionomy, assuming that needs to be done in person, but there's many other things that you can support people with in terms of body work and holistics, Reiki being one of them. You do Reiki too, right?
I don't do Reiki.
I wasn't sure. Okay. But that is a form of body work.
It
Is
is.
are there things that you can do virtually when it comes to body work?
Absolutely. Um, Orthobionomy has phases.
Mhm.
And basically, think of an onion. You peel a layer and you get to the next layer.
Sure.
And there are, I think it's five. But phase one was Lawrence Jones's work, the guy who put his client in a comfortable position and left him in the room and went working on other people, and came back, and he'd been to see him 6 times or more, and he couldn't help him. And just from being in a comfortable position and laying still for a period of time, his body woke up and self-corrected, and he never had another problem. with
Wow.
that particular area. So that's our phase one, is that foundation of orthobotomy. Then the founder, Arthur Lincoln Pauls, experimented, and he had a phase two and phase three, which didn't seem to be practical or work. I don't know anything about it. It was sort of like he was experimenting and trying to find a gentle way to do the work, because he didn't like the forceful work at the time of osteopathy in England. And then, so phase four was the first orthobotomy. And so that is more of a direct, it's not really direct, but you do put the person in a position and you do give compression and you hold it in that position. And sometimes it's really interesting. You put someone in position and their body wants to move. It's pulling against you to move. And in phase four, you're supposed to hold it if that's what you think is the best way to do it. But if you let it move, that is what we call phase five. And basically, the theory is that you are looking at the pattern that comes up, the dysfunctional pattern, and you follow it and see what it's doing. And it will be a loop-de-loop, or it'll be something that a joint does that's a little off. And I'm getting to your question. I'm going a little bit around it.
I know we're running out of time. They just told me. Bottom line here is there's so much going on that the rest of us don't realize. Even some of these things about the body, the bones regenerating, like, oh my gosh, like that, just more proof the body's amazing, but you have to support it in the right way. Bodywork being one of those. Jackie, best way to find you. How do we do that?
Okay, you can go to my website. You have that, right?
Gotcha here. Yep.
Yeah, if you could post that. And you can email me at New Lease on Life, New Lease on Life Bodywork, all lowercase, and at gmail.com. And you can also go to our webpage for orthobotomy, and you can do a practitioner lookup and you can find me there.
Beautiful. Thank you for all the insight today. Wow. I've done lymphatic drainage massage, as I revealed some other things, but I'm just scraping the surface. It's amazing what's available to help and support us, and you're part of that. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. You too. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.